I'm absolutely delighted now to be joined by the new APS President, who needs no introduction from me. It's Jim Gates. Jim, welcome to our programme.
Well, thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here.
Now, what a year you've picked to take over as APS President. You know, we've still got a pandemic, we're coming on the back of an election, you've got a new administration. What impact does all that have on the physics community?
Well, the physics community is not separate from the rest of society. And so, accordingly, this has been an extraordinarily difficult year for many people along lots of different axes. Large numbers of our members are college professors. And so suddenly they had to learn how to teach online. And that, of course, is a challenge, especially as a number of us are, shall we say, not spring chickens. But a number of our colleagues had an entirely different problem. Physics, I like to tell people, is not a faith-based organization because we talk to nature. And the way that we do that is by conducting observations and experiments. But in a COVID pandemic environment, you can't even get into the laboratory safely. And so for a lot of our colleagues, there was just an inability to actually do physics, which of course is a great challenge. And it's just so terrible for our young people, the uncertainty of what they're going to be able to do, graduating, getting a position, trying to extend their career. All of that's up in the air. And so this is what we're faced with in this period of recovery from the COVID pandemic.
I mean, hopefully, you know, we're on our way out of this pandemic now. So how would you like things to actually go from here?
The 4 points that the new administration had made, namely COVID recovery, recovering the economy, questions around racial diversity, equity, and inclusion, and then finally climate change is what the presidential administration laid out. And I found that those spoke to what we in the physics community hope to have happen. One of the political overhangs are the actions that the previous administration took to, as they claim, make America first. Now, unfortunately, the consequence of that policy was to cut Americans off from the rest of the world, and that includes physics. So we have to rebuild those bridges, both for our colleagues, as well as the extraordinary number of international students who come to the U.S., who get an education, but also who benefit our country. So the array of challenges out there are incredibly large. And what I've encouraged the APS community to do is let's talk about this. Let's try to cull best practices so that we can take the best from what we learned in this challenging period and use it in the future, but also to look at the challenges and try to fill in those holes.
Let me pick up on that, Jim, if I might. Now, you're well known in the physics community as a leading communicator. Now, how important is it for physicists to communicate?
Physics spans an incredible array of challenges. And at one end, the challenges are right now, we see developing in the laboratory around quantum communication, quantum computers. And so that physics, that strand of physics is almost something that's going to be practical. And we have high hopes that it will revolutionize computers, artificial intelligence, and the way that communication technology works. On the other hand, there's a kind of physics that I do. I'm a mathematical physicist, and I wrote MIT's first thesis on a topic called supersymmetry. Now, most people have never heard of that, but that's one of the foundations of string theory. And so for my part of physics, we're not delivering practical benefits to our society, but by the same token, unless you have that entire span from crazy string theorists to people practically delivering devices and processes to improve the bountiful quality of human life, that whole process must actually continue, otherwise you don't get the outputs. Well, at the part that's called fundamental physics, which is removed from producing products, that's supported by our government. And where do those funds come from? They come from the citizens, taxpayers. And so I always like to say we owe the people who pay us an explanation for how we're spending their money.
Now, my final question, Jim, is the March meeting, whether it's physical or virtual, just brings so many people together with kind of so many new ideas. And what are some of the things in physics right now that excite you the most?
Well, I tell people being a physicist is like having Christmas every day. That's what it feels like for me, and it has always felt that way. And part of the reason is because you get to see the wonder of how your colleagues develop totally new ideas. So, for example, one of the things that I find extraordinarily exciting right now is that recently humanity has taken its first actual picture of black holes. This was done with the Event Horizon Telescope. Well, it doesn't stop with taking that picture. Just like with cameras here on Earth, you want better cameras. People are already starting to work about it. In fact, there's a conference about it going on right now as we record this session. And I had a chance to go there yesterday and listen in. And so the range of physics, at any given time, the things that are going on is, like I said, it's like walking into a candy store and saying, I want all of those toys.
Well, Jim, look, thank you ever so much indeed for taking the time virtually to do this interview with us today. We've really loved having you on, and we really appreciate that. So thank you very much indeed.
Well, you were a very kind interviewer, and it's my pleasure to speak for physics as I have attempted to do all my life as an adult.